Welcome to Swipe. Here's what we've got for you this week.
The actor behind Gollum tells us how video games are influencing films. An American Ironman champion shows us a device he says helps boost his performance. And we break down the controversy around Star Wars Battlefront II in our Games Review.
But before all of that, let's get a look at the tech stories that got us talking this week.
The taxi-hailing app Uber admitted it had covered up a massive data hack and paid off the hackers. The details of around 57 million customers and drivers were taken more than a year ago. Uber then paid the hackers $100,000, that's around £75,000, to destroy the stolen information. A crackdown on misleading claims made by broadband suppliers is getting underway. From next May, UK broadband providers will have to make sure that at least half of their customers can really experience the fast broadband speeds they advertise within peak times. Our night skies are increasingly being filled with artificial light. Research published in the journal Science Advances shows global light pollution went up by more than 2% each year between 2012 and 2016. Some of the brightest countries are Italy, the Netherlands, Spain and the US.
In a few minutes, I'll be talking tech with a professional triathlete visiting us from the US. That's why I'm in a gym this week. First, though, Chris has been to meet a movie star. You might know Andy Serkis from Lord of the Rings and Star Wars, but the king of motion capture has been working on video games too.
Humans.
You might be forgiven for thinking this is a scene from an upcoming Planet of the Apes film. But it's a game set in the world of the movie franchise.
If you drive your movement from your hips, okay.
It's being produced by the Imaginarium Studios, brainchild of actor and king of motion capture Andy Serkis. He's played some of Hollywood's most iconic CGI characters, from Gollum to King Kong.
Cuff is a lot tighter, so we've got it so that you can undo. Kind of like...
The game aims to offer players a more movie-like experience.
It's very much an interactive movie. I mean, it really is. It's a choice-based game, and it's a morally complex kind of maze.
You can play either as an ape or a human, and the narrative of the game evolves based on the decisions you make.
We wanted to make a game which had the tone, the feel, the emotional connection that the Apes movie, War for the Planet of the Apes, and all the previous ones have, which is a kind of they all question the nature of empathy, really, the fight for survival between both species.
It was written that 23 years ago, in the year of the fire horse.
It's not his first work in gaming. More than 10 years ago, he worked on Ninja Theory's Heavenly Sword. And over the years, he's seen how the film and games industries have begun to influence one another.
Most games are incredibly filmic, and in the way that they're shot, in the way that they are designed, in the way that the characters exist. But the opposite things happen too, which is that, of course, the video game industry has hugely affected the film industry. It's not just a one-way thing, because game engines are the prime source of production for virtual production, for leading up to a shoot.
So, as technology continues to change, how does Andy see film developing?
I'm assuming that in 10 or 15 years' time we will still want shared experiences, but they might take the form of something that's a cross between theatre, augmented reality, secret cinema, sort of films which are fully immersive and engaging.
So, Hollywood, watch this space. Chris Creegan, Sky News.
If you're an endurance athlete or a weekend warrior who trains hard, you'll already know of various tools for tracking and monitoring your performance. So here's another one vying for your attention. It's called Ember. It's a non-invasive haemoglobin tracker. And to explain what that means, I've been talking to an Ironman champion who uses it.
In the build-up to a major endurance competition, Ben Hoffman spends up to 40 hours a week training. Like any professional athlete, he pushes his body to the point of absolute fatigue. But to be able to do that without going too far and overtraining, he's been using a device that measures his blood flow using light technology and algorithms so it can calculate his haemoglobin level and pulse rate.
Ben, what is haemoglobin, and how does knowing what your levels are help you?
So hemoglobin is the protein in red blood cells that helps transport oxygen to the body. And knowing my numbers, my biomarkers, especially hemoglobin, helps me track my progress when I'm training and also know whether I'm hydrated properly and how I'm recovering and getting ready for each session. And this is the cool part about the device, is that it's no longer necessary to prick your finger and draw blood. You can actually just go ahead and clip it right on your finger like that. So once that's on there, you go ahead and just sit still, and then you go to the app and you just take a measurement.
But what I don't understand is how knowing your hemoglobin level helps you perform better.
So as endurance athletes, what we're doing is trying to have a higher hemoglobin number in general so that we can carry more oxygen to our muscles and be more efficient, recover faster, and get ready for those next hard sessions that we're doing. When you see the red number, for me, that's sort of an outlier value, so maybe I have a little bit lower reading here than what my average is.
So it's a bit of a warning when
So it's
red.
kind of saying, hey, maybe you should pay attention to this. Well, maybe I'm pushing a little bit too hard in training and I need to take an easier day or even an easier week.
The California-based company behind the device is calling it a game changer, which is perhaps reflected in the price.
At a few $100s, isn't this just an expensive way to confirm that you're tired?
No, Ember is quite an exciting tool. It's able to help you track data, and when you track that data over time, it's giving you information and insight into how you've been responding and how you've been training.
And there's certainly a lot of insight on offer.
Hemoglobin is the main aspect, but it also does pulse rate. It does SpO2, which is called oxygen saturation. It does something called oxygen content. It does perfusion index, cleft variability index, and respiration rate.
See, that sounds quite complicated. So is this device just for athletes and no one else?
No, actually what's exciting is we've done a lot of work to figure out how to make this information useful. We want people to leave with this idea of, oh, that's what I can do now to make my training better.
I just wonder whether enough people know how to bring their hemoglobin levels back to the right state. Like you might give them the tool to do it, but then they need to know how to remedy it.
Yes, there's a lot of information out there for individuals how to interact, and what Ember's doing is really giving you the insight to understand what your body's telling you, and that gives a great starting point for coaches and athletes to talk to each other and go, hey, do we need to start working on diet, or do we need to start working on a different type of exercise?
What do you reckon? Do you think Ember could help boost your training? Let us know. Tweet us at Sky News Swipe. Now it's video games time, and it's Alysia who's reviewing her pick of the latest releases, including what could be one of the most controversial releases of the year.
Star Wars Battlefront II is a one step forward, three steps back kind of game. It improves on its prequel by including an expanded roster of playable heroes. There's also stunning locations from the cinematic universe. Plus, there's a single-player campaign. But it takes a giant leap backwards in terms of its approach to the progression system and competitive multiplayer. Put simply, you unlock new abilities and so on through opening loot boxes. These loot boxes dish out randomised goodies that can be used to upgrade your soldiers on the field, and originally you could have purchased these crates outright as well as earn them through playing the game. But after explosive player feedback, EA removes all microtransactions in the game. EA has said that it's going to continue tweaking gameplay and listening to fans, so fingers crossed that there'll be some more changes coming through. The Sims 4 launched on PC back in 2014, and this week it's made the leap to PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. So with that port, there's been a few tweaks and changes. For starters, all of the kind of expanded features that have been in the PC version for the last 3 years have made the leap onto console. So you've got toddlers, you've got dishwashers, you've got all of the kind of goodies that people have really loved on the PC version. Thing is, there's a few downsides to porting a game where you play it with mouse and keyboard onto something like a console where you've got far less buttons on your controller. The other thing that's slightly tricky is that there are quite a few bugs. One of the ones that I came into on the PlayStation version was that sometimes the menu would pop up and it would be impossible to close again unless I restarted the game, which is kind of frustrating. If, though, you don't own a PC and you're just looking to have that Sims 4 experience on the console, then it's definitely worth investing in. Pokemon Ultra Sun and Pokemon Ultra Moon are the updated, kind of enhanced versions of last year's Pokemon Sun and Moon games. not much has changed. Like, honestly, the story is pretty much identical for the first 25 hours. The main difference between Pokemon Sun and Moon and Pokemon Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon comes in the inclusion of new Pokemon, and that really keeps things fresh. There's also new gameplay mechanics like Ultra Wormholes. Here you can ride a legendary Pokemon through Ultra Space in the hopes of discovering new Pokemon like Yan Mega. It's a fun little detour, and the larger variety of Pokemon across the game is refreshing. Are changes like this enough to fork out for Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon when you might already have the games from last year on your 3DS? No, but if you missed out on the games from last year and you want to play the last Pokemon game that will be available on the Nintendo 3DS before Nintendo starts taking the games onto Nintendo Switch, it's worth checking out.
Well, that's it for this week's show. Join us again for more Swipe next week, and in the meantime, follow us on Twitter @Sky News Swipe, then you can see what we get up to throughout the week. Bye-bye.